I can't hear a word you're saying. How you doing?
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
There we go.
There you are. Get
Yeah.
on mute, bro.
Yeah. That took a minute. So, any hoots. Yeah, sorry for that was a bit abrupt. Anyways, let's do a little introduction, I guess. Seeing as it's been a hot minute since I've been back on Twitch. Uh, I'm Knight. Been playing D&D for about 20 plus years. DMing for about half of that. Anyways, Chris, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. My handle has been Psych Ward for 15 years now, something like that. Name is Chris. Veteran, like the rest of us here, and
Yep.
playing D&D. Play other tabletop games as well. Run a few things here and there, but I mainly excel at building characters per worlds to get into. I tend to always get the you build the coolest characters updates from people like after we start playing or whatever. So that's one of my specialties, I guess, like understanding how to build a character to the world. So
Yeah, every time you build a character, it's like the most epic character that you could possibly do. And like how you do it in like 20 minutes or less is beyond me. Last but definitely not the least favorite of the group, Daddy Bro.
Howdy. My name is Daddy Bro 72. I'm an American hardcore Minecraft player normally. I have my own Twitch stream too, by the way, at Daddy Bro. But I know Knight and Psych a little bit. We play a little D&D together. I don't even want to tell you how long I've been playing D&D. You can tell by the gray beard. It's been a little bit. Now, to be fair, I haven't played the whole time because I'm a man child and my wife said no up until recently. So I'm getting back into the swing of things. I think I started on the second generation of D&D back in the day, way back in the day, like way back in the day. And we're starting to get back into it, and it's really exciting. I am now known as the king of the frying pan, and we'll explain that later, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes, we will.
I'm just here for a little fun, chilling, hanging out with some friends.
yeah, second edition was what, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah,
It went for a while. It went into the
2 and then
late 90s,
2.5.
right?
I started in
Yeah.
the early 80s.
Okay.
The really
Yeah.
early 80s.
Yeah, it was like 2 and then 2.5, and then it went 3, 3.5. And oh, look at that. Daddy Bro is now what?
Woohoo!
You were liked or something? I guess. I don't know. Somebody likes you? I don't know what that was. Or are you watching it?
No, that's me following you. Probably.
Oh,
I
nice.
clicked the follow button, dude.
So we do have a couple things to talk about. Like we're gonna do. Like this is our little introduction for us. We're gonna do a little introduction to a couple programs that we're starting and represent. Um, do a little tabletop, talking about tabletop and PTSD therapy sessions and stuff like that. I really want to get into the world building, character creation, and then our big topic for tonight: GM gaming styles versus player gaming styles. You guys ready for this? This sounds.
Oh, yeah.
This is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So first off, let's start off by going over a couple things. Chris, why don't you go ahead and go with Roll for Hills? Tell us about it.
Sure. So, Aaron and I first met through a phone call because of a phone call I had made um, to find out whether or not there was additional ways we could help out the veteran community that's suffering from PTSD. What drove that was I was at a table playing where I had another buddy that was DMing that was a longtime veteran, and one of those veterans came to the table and had told us that he was in a moment and he was ready to take his life, and during those 15 minutes of kind of making that decision, he was thinking about what our next session was going to look like and how that was going to affect the rest of the guys at the table as well. And after he told us that, and that simple thought was what pulled him through it, was when I decided that we needed to like try to do more for the community and get tabletop gaming out there as a way of helping out with PTSD. And at the time, I had no idea that it was actually a treatment, right? So I started digging into it a little bit more, found out like through some Harvard Business Reviews and like digging through peer-reviewed studies that they are using it as um, uh, actual treatment for PTSD. The VA has actually allowed some of the therapists to use it as treatment for PTSD. So it's definitely been proven to work, and it works for me and from the guys here at the table too. From what I understand, it helps them out too. So, anyways, so with that, we met through a phone call and we started talking about kind of what we could do. And one of the original thoughts was the VD4GM, which is Veteran Dads for Game Masters.
Yeah.
And having my background from the business side of things, I was like, well, like it's good to have the nonprofit side, but we need to have a profit side going as well to kind of fund some of that. And we need to get that going first because the nonprofit side is going to take a long time to stand up, and all that stuff from doing all the paperwork and the business side of things. So anyways,
Right.
So Roll for Heels is the public facing side that allows people to come in and play games, to purchase those games as a game master running it, and then percentages of that goes towards the VD4GM side of the house. But in turn, the big aspect of it, the big mission statement of that is educating those that come to play the games on why we exist and what we're doing and how much tabletop gaming can actually affect somebody's life in a positive way, right? So,
Right.
so anyways, and then also getting out there the stigmas behind PTSD and like some of that stuff, and getting people aware of all of that as well. So anyhow, yeah, that's kind of a quick and dirty on Roll for Hills.
Nice. Okay. Well, I mean, I gotta say, like, I've been there with the PTSD, and I went through uh, a lot of therapy for it. So, um, yeah, I feel for your friend on that one. Um, so I'll briefly go into you. I know that you touched base on it a little bit for BD4GM. BD4GM is Veteran Dads for Game Masters, uh, and it's to unite and bring together veterans, first responders, and their families that are suffering from PTSD, and which is something that's near and dear to all three of us, and including another. There's somebody else that we associate with, and it's near and dear to him as well. I know David would love to be here and talk about that. Um, and so it VD4GM is there to provide that therapy service, to provide the help to build that tribe, as you were talking about before, uh, to kind of bring everybody together and help out with that PTSD. A lot of people don't realize this, but PTSD is actually a silent killer. I mean, it really is. Like, it'll kill you from the inside and kill everything around you, and you won't even see it. It's like what is that drug, that poison, that like tasteless, smellless uh,
Carbon
poison?
monoxide.
No, no, no. I mean, that's gas, man. I'm talking about the actual. It starts with an N, right? I forget what it's called. But anyways, like it's there, like it happens, and that's what PTSD is. Like to me, yeah.
Well, and to touch on
I
the
hope
tribe
not.
side of it too, and when you bring that up, like that's it's I had talked about a book that was called Tribe, right? And we talked about that a little bit, and a lot of I'm linked to a lot of the special operations areas as well,
Yep,
like some of their backgrounds and all that,
yep.
and
Both of us,
they use a lot of that, right? Well, I mean, like organizations that deal with PTSD stuff, where they're sending
right?
people out for different therapies and stuff like that. But so, anyways,
And then we got the seamen. We got the seamen
yeah,
over here.
yeah, but
We
so
love you, man. We love you, anyways.
the big part behind the tribe thing that you're talking about is the going from having somebody that has your back and has been there with you through like the thick and thin of it, and you can always
Yep.
rely on that person, to you leave that and you don't have it anymore, and you're like,
Right.
now what do I do, right? And like those people that are still in, like you don't want to bug them because you know that they're busy or they're ramping up for the next deployment or whatever, you know, like, and so you're like, yeah, like I'll stay my distance because you feel like an outsider now, you know, because you left and all that stuff. So anyways, and then also like even for long term, you know, people who've been out long term, it's still the same thing, right? It's hard to find that same you know, for lack of a better word, like brotherhood or whatever that you get, you know, in the military. So the whole tribe aspect is understanding what makes a tribe and like what things can you build to help create that tribe mentality again and that feeling, right? And it gets you to that point to where you're not like sitting in the dark at home twiddling your thumbs having those thoughts because you're literally sitting there by yourself going through, you know, a bad time, to putting you into a position where you have a tribe of people, you're constantly busy with people, you're doing things, people know you and can see when you're not doing good, you know, even when you're trying to hide it. So um, that's the really like hardcore benefit of having that tribe mentality, you know, is making sure that people are there for each other. So, and the where the tabletop gaming comes into that is when you play a character at the table, you tend to let down the walls that you normally wouldn't let down if it was just yourself, right? And then you do that psychologically with the people at the table, and after you've done that, you feel more comfortable with them, so you're more likely to let down the walls with your true personality too, like your true person self instead of just the character you're playing. So that's part of one of the things that was in the peer-reviewed study that they saw from a psychological standpoint of it, both sociological and psychology side of it. So, anyways, um, but yeah, so it's really interesting how impactful it can be. So, anyway, sorry,
Right.
I didn't mean to steal that away, but I wanted to make sure we touched on the tribe thing.
Yeah. No. You're good. You're good. Anything you got to say about it, Daddy Bro?
Well, I was gonna say, I think you're dead on the head with the whole idea of a sense of tribe is important. It's really hard for people to understand PTSD if you've never experienced it or never been around someone that's had it,
Yep.
because it's not like other problems.
Absolutely.
And you're dealing with a culture of people who are, especially special forces types. We are very A-driven type people. And it's A to B, go, 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 no stop. And there's no time for that letdown. There's no time for that quiet. There's no time to reflect on the things that we've done. You know, that's not how we function.
Right.
And I think that this really helps with that loss, if you will, for lack of a better word. When I left the military, I lost my whole world, you know, because I had been indoctrinated into that whole system. Whether you're shipborne or not, like me, I was in the Navy. So, you know, if you've been in that culture, you understand, you know, we have our own way of speaking. We have our own way of eating and dressing, and we have kind of systems for everything, right? And then you're patted on the back, told you did a good job, sent home to mom, and there you go. Have a nice life. And that's a rude awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean,
and if you're not prepared,
each one of them has a
Yeah.
like everybody has their own different stories. Keep going though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. You're good. And it's just this community, this concept is fantastic because it brings together like-minded people that have kind of a common thread, even though they don't always have the exact same story, right? And like you said, you can get around these people and kind of relax and realize you're not alone, and that if you need something, they're going to be there for you.
Right.
And that, I think, is huge. You know, I wish there was more of this in the world.
Right.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Oh no, I appreciate it, and your 2 cents is valued, man. So yeah, sorry, I got a 1-year-old German Shepherd that thinks that she's on this table.
I know for me too, like when I'm at the table, being at the table is this the same thing that I used to do when I would go home and drink, like when I was still in the military, right? And like dealing with all this stuff or whatever, right? It was my escape, but now it's a healthy escape, right? Compared to, you know, before there was a lot of stuff I was doing to suppress it. And to your point, you know, you're talking about like the culture and stuff. You don't let it out. A lot of it too is like you don't discuss it because you don't want to be removed from a team, or you don't want the stigma that comes along with it, or you don't, you know, like there's all these things that come with it, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely good points.
Yep. And like also since you brought that up though, like a lot of people don't talk about it because they don't want that stigmata or um, that false title. Excuse you, Missy. Of because you have PTSD, you are now a violent person, and everybody should fear you because of that. Like you could go psycho at any moment. No, that's not exactly what it is. Like yes, I will say that. Like for me, for instance, I was really quick with my temper, really quick to shut people off, um, and I would self isolate all the time. Um, I I had violent thoughts, I had suicidal thoughts. That was all stuff that was going on inside my head, and I'm not scared to talk about it now. I was at one point, just because you hear people talk about this stuff, and then they're like, oh, you need to go to a psych ward and psych ward. See, I put it in there. But you need to go to a psych ward and get evaluated, and you need a doctor and all that. And in my head, I'm like, I'm not that person. Like, I'm not a bad person just because I'm dealing with this. And a lot of people, because of because of Hollywood really put a bad taste in everybody's mouth about what PTSD is, and what it actually does to somebody.
I think the medical community struggles with it too, to be honest.
Oh yeah, and I agree with that.
Because I've had my share of run-ins with therapists, and I got a couple 4-letter choice words for them. They can suck it. And I get they're trying to do what they're trying to do, but a lot of times it's, for me anyway, I'm just not that guy. I'm like, I'm not gonna hug you. We're not gonna sing Kumbaya. It's not gonna happen.
Right.
I don't like people touching me to begin with, and now I'm really not the touchy-feely type. And oh, let's hug. No, get away from me. Or they want to put you in group therapy or whatever, and that just doesn't. That's not how we are.
Right. Exactly.
And honestly, for me, my group therapy is playing D&D and playing Minecraft and doing stuff like that. Being into the gaming world and just not being in that. I gotta be in that dark place by myself where I'm thinking about things I shouldn't be thinking about.
Yep.
Well, that group therapy side too that you talked about, like even from like having that type A personality and coming from kind of my background or whatever, you go sit on them, you hear other people talking about their issues, and you're like, so that's why you're here, huh?
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
Wait till you hear my story. Like, like
hold my beer. Here it comes.
Right. Exactly.
So, and so you have that like, that it almost becomes like a one-up mentality, right? Of like, okay, like, yeah, I get it, but yours, and the bad part behind that too is other people are the same way, right? And they're like, okay, like yours is as bad as mine, but it's not about that. It's not about it's how you process that trauma, or what triggers those traumas. Like everybody's triggers are different. That's the other thing. And that's, the biggest part to that point that you just discussed is, and what we were talking about earlier is educating people on like what it is, right? Like that most people just have no idea. They hear PTSD and like, oh, you're effed up. Like that's what they understand of it, right? Like if you come spend the night at my house, I'm knocking my doors. Like that's their mentality on it, right? I mean, even when I was in college or going back to school, and fresh out of the military and stuff, and you go hang out with friends or whatever, go drink and all that stuff, and go back and crash at somebody's place or whatever, and everybody's like freaking out about like, oh, this guy's gonna sleep in our house, like he's got PTSD, like what's wrong with him, and so you have to like eventually people learn like that's not what it is, right? But people that anyways. But yeah, that stigma behind it, and then also just not being ignorant to it, right? Because you've just never been exposed to it, and you never truly know what it is, and yeah. So, anyways, that's the biggest part is like actually educating people to get them to understand what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's what we are trying to do, and I think it actually to cast a positive light on it, like there is, if you are suffering from PTSD, and this is for anybody that watches this, if you're suffering from PTSD, it is okay. It is okay to say, "Hey, I need help." Um, don't wait until it gets worse, because when it gets worse, it gets worse, and it gets worse quickly. That ball just grows, and it grows 10 times every time it gets worse. So get the help that you need. Reach out if you need to. Like, reach out to the three of us. Like, we're on Discord. We're on here. I'll be posting this on YouTube as well, um, and it's just it will we will be there to help you if you need it. There's also I don't remember exactly what the 1-800 number is. Do you guys remember it off the top of your head?
No.
Of course not. Of course not.
I don't do 800 numbers myself personally, but I
Yeah,
get it.
I mean, but definitely get that help. Like, if you need it, get it. We're here for you if you need to, um, and whatever you can possibly need. You got anything else to touch up on there, Daddy Bro?
Well, the one thing I would say, you mentioned the whole, hey, if you need
Those are
help,
some
get
nice
help type of thing.
forearms.
You like that?
Yeah, I like that.
Sorry.
I mean, you heard
I'm
my
messing
table,
with
right?
my camera tonight. I'm trying to figure out a good position for this stupid thing. Anyway, you mentioned if you need help, get help. If you ever watch one of my streams, I end my stream the same way every night. The last thing out of my mouth is getting help doesn't make you weak. It in fact makes you strong.
Right.
Because people don't understand that when you're in a situation where you're an especially us age-driven types, we are used to being in control. We do not like to lose control. And when you have PTSD, one of the very first things that happens is you find out you're not in control. And that's bad. That's really hard for people like that. And that's how it goes from I'm okay to I'm really in a bad spot now.
Right.
And it's hard to even see it coming. And it's such a blindside thing that you go from 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds. And that's why I tell people, you got to get help. You need to talk to somebody. You don't have to seek professional help necessarily. Just reach out. Even if it's to one of us, even if it's to somebody you really don't know that well, we've kind of shared the same ground, if you will, and we can talk. And no one's going to judge you. That's not what we're here for, And I think that a lot of people, like you mentioned the group thing, where that's what you're here for. I'm not judging you. I'm not, because I don't know what you've been through till you tell me, right?
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's that response is an early coping mechanism. Like when I was ignorant to like what like I didn't even know what PTSD was, at the time. I had it and I was going through it, but I had no idea like what it was, right? And so like it was that I'm not going to bother anybody else with this was the one mentality, right? Like I'm going to keep it to myself because other people have worse troubles or whatever than me. And then the other side of that was the, hearing other people's stories, and you're like, you one up it or whatever in your mind and all that stuff. And so anyways, that was all like the early PTSD stuff for me of like how I coped with it, right? Like, and so just to touch on that, you were talking about the numbers, 988, and then you press 1.
Yep, 988, and they do have Spanish and English. So
yeah, and you press 1 and it'll take you straight through to somebody. And then there's also a text line for 838-255. It's the text line on there. So.
Awesome, thank you very much for getting that.
But yeah, no, that's again, some of the education too. We say educating the public, but there's a lot of guys that still have never figured out how to treat their own issues, right? That still have it, and they think, I just keep making bad decisions, or I keep making bad choices, or I keep, and they're purposely not isolating what the truth is, like what the actual issue is.
Right.
Because they want to pretend like it's not there, right? I mean, we've all been. I know I was there at one point. It was like, I don't have PTSD. That's not my issue. It's just because I had a.
I'm
bad
in a
week,
rut. That's all. I used to say that all the time. It's
I'm in a rut.
Bad luck.
Exactly.
That's not what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Well, awesome. I think this has been great. We kind of got a little bit off topic, but we also stayed on topic quite a bit. It's okay though. It's all right. You know, but yeah, I think all three of us are pretty much saying the same thing, and we do have David in the chat as well. He's actually there too. He's saying like, it's hard for all of us um, to see it with ourselves as well. So yeah, other people can see it first sometimes, and that's very true. So thank you very much, David, for that. If you guys don't know, David is Super Wolf Leo. He'll be in streams with us tonight. His wife had a medical issue that she needed to go tend to, and so it's okay. It's all right that he's not here right now. I'd much rather him be at home taking care of that. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight was, and Chris, you touched base on it a little bit, was character creation. Why don't you walk us through that a little bit?
Sure. So the first time somebody I guess I'll step back. I was always very creative thinking, like even as a
Two
kid,
steps.
like
Take 2
um,
steps.
um, I was always able to run like with a good imagination on just about anything, to the
Mhm.
point of like having imaginary friends as kids and all that other good stuff, right? But when I got into D&D, that was like super helpful, even back in like to your point earlier, like second edition and some of those early on, right? That was a big thing because most of it was theater of the mind. You didn't have maps drawn all the time, and when I
Right.
played, we had to draw our own maps in order to find our way back out of the dungeon. So anyways, it was very theater of the mind. You had to be very creative about like what your character was. You had to get that across to people well, like in order for them to really understand like what you can and cannot do as a player. Um, and so that's kind of where that started. But one of the big things I see that people struggle with character creation is uh, they tend to try to think of like, okay, I'm going to build this person, and then they're like, okay, well, like what role do I need to fill, or like what does the team need, and all of that, right? And D&D, one of the big things with D&D people tend to forget is like you can have like 4 rogues in a party and you can make it through, like, or you can have
Mhm.
nothing but clerics, and each cleric can play completely different, right?
Right.
And so that tends to be like, for people that have never played D&D, they come in with that, what is the trifecta mind, right, where you have to have like your tank, your damage, and your healer, which you don't necessarily have to have in D&D.
Mhm.
um, so anyways, yeah, so with character creation, I tried to like think way outside the box, and I put like, just okay, this is the world that we're going into, and these are some of the things we're going to be experiencing. Why would my player be there, and like how did he get there? Hey, he or she, like whatever I'm playing at the time. Um, uh, One of the funnest characters I played most recently was, well, there's 2 of them. Timmy was one of them, and the other was
Timmy.
I can't remember what her name was, but it was the hag that I played.
Oh God, yeah, that was a good one.
Anyways,
I knew you were going to do that voice.
Timmy.
Timmy, Timmy was I can't remember what the name of the race is, but he was a wooden boy that was like brought back to life through hags, basically, and replaced like for somebody's child.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, yeah,
Great
so
backstory, by the way. It was a great one.
yeah, yeah, he would talk, and that's part of it too. So I guess what I can go into here is like when you run with this, the other things that I added into like character creating Timmy, for instance, was because he was a wooden boy and he didn't have restrictions of like bones and all that stuff, right? When like somebody would say something to him, he was like super creepy already because he was a clown style like doll. But then he
Mhm.
would like turn his head only instead of his body to look at you before he would like turn his body to respond afterwards, right? And so it's just like those little details that people see like when you're playing it that enhance your character, right? And like what your character's doing. Um,
Right. Yep.
but
Thank you for the nightmare for the night. I appreciate that.
Oh, dude, that's not even half of it. You should have seen the picture. Oh my
Oh, and then
gosh.
every time he spoke, there was, so anytime he said like a key word in the sentence he was speaking, there was a disembodied echoed voice in deep speech and draconic in the background on top of like the common word that he was speaking. So yeah, like so anyways, yeah, he was super creepy, but everybody liked him, right? And that's why, because I put a little bit of time and effort into like, what does this character do differently than everybody else?
Right.
But then I also played on to, okay, what is his class, right? And like, what is he gonna do? And uh, for instance, one of the druids I played recently was a lot of fun, and like I try to dig myself in. What I normally do is I'll start and say, okay, what class am I gonna play? And then I look at the race, and then I put a story together really quick on that, and then I go choose my background right after that, because I try to find a background that fits into the story that I put behind that person. So, anyways, that's just a quick and dirty on the like character creation that I normally start with. And well, for instance, in one of the campaigns we were all playing in, like I created that bard that like swallowed swords and stuff, right? Like, and part of it, which you guys didn't know of that, because like we have a hiatus on there, but he has like these magical abilities to make that sword actually like go into other ethereal planes, so he's not actually swallowing it when it goes through the mask. Yeah, so everybody thinks he's swallowing the sword, but it's actually like, so that's the kind of details, right, that I put into these backstories of like, why can he do that?
So dark.
So
So dark.
again, it comes with that like imagination part, right? So yeah, what I normally do is I'll jot something down. I'll have an idea. I'll write it down really quick, and then I'll see, okay, well, like what parts of this is like really interesting, and what can I add to it. But
Yeah, and your ability to build something, just like you've played in two of my two of my one shots, and then we have the actual campaign that's coming up, and the two characters that or actually you played one of them twice.
yeah,
Okay, and
two different characters though.
yeah, two different
Completely
characters, but
different
oh
characters.
my god, like one of them you couldn't hit him. I'm sitting over here as a GM, and I'm rolling to hit. I can't hit a 21. So yeah, that's crap. um,
That
so
was the pompous paladin.
yep, and then
Yeah.
and then everything that you did with Timmy was just like he hits with everything, and he turns this tree into something
I
else,
brought
and you're just
the
like,
life
oh
to
my
fight for
god,
me and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and then you wanted to take over the gargantuan hand. I'm like, it's too big, So
Yeah, that was the same one shot, two different characters. But the fun part was like when you play those characters and you really think it. That's the other part too, right? So there's
right,
a thing in D&D you always hear about of metagaming, right? And I try to really like put myself in a mindset of I'm this character, so I'm
hmm
trying not to metagame what I do know,
yeah, yep,
as the person playing the character, right?
right,
And so I really try to keep myself in the mindset of like, what does this character know, and how would this character respond to like what's happening right now?
right,
So that helps a lot too.
yeah,
But
yeah. Right, so all right, Daddy bro, now it's your turn. It's your turn to shine, man.
What?
It's your turn to shine. Let's talk about your character
Oh my
creation.
god. What about my character? My character's horrible.
No.
He
You got
hides.
the frying pan of doom.
Yeah.
right.
We're doing this campaign right now, and apparently I have a frying pan that makes me hard to see.
Yep, right.
I just hold it up in front of me, and my enemies are like, they're just they
The
can't see
whole
it. And
John
they're like,
Cena.
what the
Yeah,
heck?
yeah.
Yeah, you can't see me.
You can't see me.
In my farm. But I like Leo's tip about coming up with an idea you want to have fun with, and the frying pan's an example of that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It wasn't intentional. I had no intentions of using it. It just kind of happened, and I think part of it is because my kid's into Disney.
Mhm.
You know, with the what is that, Rapunzel with the frying pan
Rapunzel.
thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why not? Let's go for it. And so for me, Dungeons and Dragons goes all the way back to the Icewind Dale trilogies, way back in the day. And if you know that trilogy, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It goes back to the dark elf that's a good ranger. I play like a half elf. So, but that's where it comes. Yes, Dritz. Yes, exactly. Dritz Thurin, I think his name is. And it's a fantastic book series. If you get a chance, I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. It's fantastic. If you like that kind of stuff, I love it. I read it and reread it every year, just about. It's just one of those things that I can relate to. And I look at that. It's kind of like there's good within the evil. There's evil within the good.
Exactly.
It's just fantastic, and to play that out is fun. My youngest daughter was in our party too, and she is so a paladin. Even in real life, she's a paladin.
It's funny, like, because her responses naturally fit the character.
Oh,
yes.
so
Even at the table,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Like, she responds in person, not as a character, as a paladin would respond. Yeah.
And I tell her that all the time, because she'll get it. Like, I'll pick her up from school, and she'll complain about how this person and that person didn't follow the rules today, and I'm like, okay, paladin. And she's like, I am not. And I'm like, oh, you're doing it right now.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think part of for me anyway, part of what's driving this current trend is the dungeon master that we've been using. You know, when you have someone who can articulate the game the way Becca does, it makes it a lot of fun.
Right.
And it really helps. It helps. And when you have people like Psyche and Knight, and they put the time in to build the backstories to their characters. They add color and they sprinkle things in, like even Leo with his hanging out at the bar. I'm just gonna sit here and watch a fight type thing. I love it because that is so true to life.
Right.
That's how people really are, and it makes it interesting. I think. So that's my 2 cents for all that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, and so my biggest thing was like growing up was always dragons and fantasy stuff anyways. So I always went with like an elven darker character that controlled magic to control things, which was crazy. And then Lord of the Rings came out. And when Lord of the Rings came out, I was like, oh, Legolas, he's a badass. And then just lady, what's her name? The white elven lady. She comes in with the ring and turns like dark form, and you're just like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I loved every bit of it. And so it's really weird because I always went dark elven mage type stuff.
Galadriel?
Then the older yeah, that's it. And Galadriel, yeah. And yeah, that's absolutely right, Super. So, and then the more I got into like building these characters, the more dark I got, until it almost went to like it started turning to necromancy. And the more necrotic damage I could do, and the more dead I could raise, the better it was. And that's just the kind of characters I've always built. And now, just to kind of do a smooth transition, this is the kind of worlds that I build. I build these dark worlds now, where all this negative stuff is going on. Almost like if you've watched Game of Thrones or like the Power of the Rings stuff that's happening now on Prime. It's dark. Like the stuff that's happening is dark. Mordor hasn't even really been a thing yet, and it's already dark. So I really fit myself into, and it's really weird though, Daddy Bro, because I think I would be like that Hot Topic cowboy.
Don't even get me started on Hot Topic now.
But that, you know what I'm saying though, like
you know what happened today, right?
Oh,
right?
I know.
We went to a VIP
how was
event
that?
at a freaking oh my god! I don't even want to tell you how much she spent. It was a lot.
Yeah, I believe it. I
like
believe it.
More than a car payment, a lot.
I have one question on like my 3-year-old and the trending pattern she has right now. So, she drew a character on her. She has a whiteboard in her room. They both have whiteboards so they can draw and all that stuff. She drew this like really crazy looking character. And I was like, "What's that?" And she's like, "That's a monster. Monsters are funny." And I was like, "Okay, hot topic, girl."
Yeah, but so like
Prepare
those are,
today.
but like those are the kinds of worlds that I tend to build, and so like the world that I built right now is Evan Reach, and in the world of Evan Reach, I've got 3 undead wizards. One of them, she specializes in necromancy. The other one specializes in illusion magic, right? And these are the 3 big bads. Like these are the 3 bads that everybody is going to have to face at one point. Um, and then there's one that he just absorbed all the knowledge that he could, and he is like an all-powerful wizard. Uh, but he's undead, and so like it's going to be that much harder to kill him. And he's lived for generations to grow into this big Billy badass, like for lack of better terms, to kick ass, and he wants to put his reign over the entire world. And so, almost like a scourge, it's moving into the world. And I mean, if you've seen Game of Thrones, when the White Walkers are like, we're taking over now," and they go and bust down the wall of ice, like that's the world that I'm building, and it's disturbing to think about, but I love it. Oh, I love it. So
You're gonna
yeah,
have to edit in there that there's you ruin, what is that called when you ruin a video clip for somebody that hasn't watched it yet?
oh god, yeah. Spoiler. There's spoilers
Spoilers.
in this.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
spoilers.
For somebody
Yeah,
that goes
yeah,
down the
yeah.
trend of like, oh, I'm gonna go watch Game of
Game
Thrones
of Thrones.
finally.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna go watch it.
I'm
But
only like 12 years late, but you know.
yeah. Exactly. What you got for us, Daddy Bro?
So I think I was going to mention the like I saw in the chat Leo's talking about how they don't have to water them down, and then so in fairness, it's really hard to put a bunch of books into a movie. It
Mhm.
just is.
Yeah.
It's not something that's been easily or successfully done very often. I will say this about Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien-esque type stuff is pretty fantastic. The one and if you're in Hollywood right now and you're hearing this, God help us. But if you are, hear what I'm saying. Make something, a movie, a full scale, a production with dark elves.
Yep.
Do the Underdark. I dare you.
Yep.
You'll make
Yep.
$1 billion. I swear to God, you'll make a mint because nerds and geeks like us will be lined up to see this movie. We'll be dressed up to go role play in this movie while we're watching this movie. I'm telling you, you'll make a fortune.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you think I'm wrong, I'll just point you to the new Beetlejuice movie. I waited 20 some odd years for that freaking movie to come out, and let me tell you, it's fantastic.
Right?
It is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Hollywood underestimates the nerd allure to it.
Yep.
I mean, they really do. So, like, I would go total geek and just.
And remember, us nerds, we make a lot of money because we're all in technology. We rule the world. You just don't know it because we hide behind the scenes.
Right.
We have money to spend. We just got to find something to spend it on.
Outside
do you know how much we spend on dice and figurines? Give me a freaking break, man.
Or all of the Patreon stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
You can ask Knight how much I've been spending on all this stuff, like putting everything together.
Can't even imagine.
Crazy.
Yeah, no.
It sounds like a Saturday at the Hot Topic for me.
No,
me, man.
I keep telling him, I'm like, dude, you need to put yourself one of those little Apple trackers in your pants everywhere you go, and so that way I can find you. His wife is gonna kill him.
Right. My wife was adding to the pile. She was like, "Oh, I want this shirt," and I'm like, "Wait, no, you're not supposed to be getting in on this." Oh, I want that backpack. You know how much those stupid backpacks go for? They start at about $60.
I was gonna say they probably around $60. Yeah,
at least, and most of them are more than that. And they got like 4 of them today.
Oh, good God!
And I'm like, you only have one shoulder. What's wrong with you? You can't carry 4 at one time.
Right?
I mean, I guess it's good they're not in the 80s though, because they'd be like cutting the backpack up and sewing it together in patches and all that stuff, right? So.
I know, right?
No, but see, I think a lot of Hot Topic nowadays that actually already has that pre-designed into it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because my daughter keeps telling me she loves the grunge look. I'm like, you don't even know what grunge is. Shut up. Don't talk to me about grunge.
Oh, man.
It's the same thing when I talk to people that I'm a punk. No, you're not. Punk's been dead since the late 70s. You don't even know what punk is.
Yeah.
Don't tell me Green Day's punk because they're not.
Because they have a chain on their wallet.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. So, let's talk about GM gaming styles versus player gaming styles. I like this. I think this is going to be a really hot topic. And then we will. I don't think we have just one person watching, so it's okay. We'll just end on after this. But yeah, let's talk about GM gaming styles versus player gaming styles, and maybe we can touch a little bit base on the new D&D books. I know me and Chris Syke have been looking into those. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's start off with Daddy Bro on this one. Daddy Bro, let's talk about it.
I'm not a DM.
Okay, but let's talk about from a character perspective.
So for me, the big thing is I need the DM to be structured, right?
Mhm.
I look for a DM who has structure and who has a storyline. And the more storyline and structure you have, the more you make it real for me, the more I'm going to get involved, the more I'm going to be interested in the plot. Right. Now, in fairness, it is a complex mission in my mind for anybody to do this. It is not easy to put in, then the amount of time that you have to put into even developing monsters is pretty intense. Mm-hmm. Like we did a starter dungeon type thing just to get a feel for it. Excuse me. Swallowed the spit wrong. And we had a bunch of noobs, right? It was me and the wife and the kid, and we had a whole bunch of noobs there. They never rolled dice a day in their life, and I was scared. I was like, "Oh God, I don't think they're gonna like this." And by the time we were done with that, after that first session, they were like, "When are we going back?" And I'm like, "What? You like something I'm passionate about? No, that can't be. Who body snatched my family?" But it's cool because like I'm a big gamer. If I'm not working, I'm gaming. If I am working, I'm probably still wanting to game. And if I'm not doing that, I'm watching football. So thus the football hat. Mm-hmm. But those sessions, it was. I haven't been around people who are serious about Dungeons and Dragons in a very long time, and it was so. Because I remember back in the day, and you guys can back me up on this. You character creation was a painful process.
Oh yeah,
you literally sat there for hours, and math is hard. Rolling, re-rolling, trying to figure out what Constitution means and how this works and how that works. It was horrible. But now everything's automated, and when they showed me the automation and I put it on my phone, I was like in tears. I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Right?
I played the hard way for so long, and these damn kids. I'm telling you. And I think that's a big advantage because now this is opening up the world of Dungeons and Dragons to a whole new generation of players. New, young, and old. Because there's a bunch of old heads too who don't want to do all that either. And true. D&D Beyond has been a godsend, I think. I really believe that. And I guarantee if you're a dungeon master, it's helped you out too. Because it's just made it easier. Right?
You can find everything on the fly.
Right. And the knowledge base, like I know that Syke let us borrow one of his books because the paladin had to learn a little bit about characters. She sat down and read. You got my kid to read a book. You know how hard that is to do? I've been trying forever to do that. I'm amazed. And she was like, "Hey, Dad, check this out." And I'm like, What? You read a book? Awesome. So yeah, there you have it. That's my 2 cents on it. Quick take.
All right, so Chris, let's talk about it. DMing versus character building, or
Sure.
DMing gaming style versus character gaming style.
I literally, in my mind, before I go into a session, if I'm a player, have to remind myself that I'm a player, because I like it's easy for me to be in that DM mode. It's like and to have that like challenge hat on, right? Um, and it's like, okay, like I'm not here to challenge. Now I can state like, okay, maybe the DM didn't understand like what my player is doing, like, and I'll push that, like this is why the player is doing this, or this is why this is happening. Um, that was part of the in one of the scenes that we had where I threw the sword up and like he like caught it midair like by swallowing the sword or whatever, right? Like, and I rolled like a 23 or something, right? So it was just a ridiculous roll. But the reason it was a ridiculous roll is because I had had that conversation with the DM ahead of time of like, this is what my character can do. Are you good with that? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's the other thing too that I try to do as like a player is I come up with my thoughts and like how I want to play the character, and then I take it to the DM and say, this is the direction I'm thinking about going. Like directionally, this is where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have concerns with that? Like, and is it gonna like cause issues?
Right.
Um, the reason I do that though is because I have DM'd, right, and I understand like you can throw an entire party off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're doing things completely outside of the box or things away from like where the DM's trying to take things.
Right.
Because it's already challenging for the DM to make that to your point earlier, Daddy Bro, of like in pulling somebody into a world and making them feel like they're actually there while they're playing, right? Like that's a unique feat that most like really good DMs can do. Um, and you know it when you're sitting with somebody that's doing it, and then you also can tell the difference when you're with a DM that doesn't like have it, right? Like you
Right.
know right off the bat, you're like, okay, like this is gonna be like a grind tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um
Exactly.
anyways, um I've had both sides of this. So I guess from the DM perspective, I also try to think of what when I'm DMing something similar to when I was running you guys through Dragon's Ice Peak, um, and just kind of like getting you guys your feet wet basically of like in D&D again, because it's been a while since you guys have played. And um, there was a portion in that where uh, as a player there's things that DMs do that players probably can't do, because and it could be considered metagaming in a way. But for instance, in that section where they go into the dungeon with the dwarves, right, and then at the
Mm-hmm.
back of the dungeon there's that area where they could pull the jewel. If they pulled the jewel, it was like 30 d8 worth of like force damage, right? Like if you were the one that pulled the jewel, and it, like instant kill, right? Like
Right.
guaranteed. And so as a DM, then you make the choice of like, okay, I'm going to send this NPC in, because he's greedy or whatever, to grab this, and you're teaching the players that are new, like it's not always okay just to rush in and grab stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't been in that position before. So
Right.
uh, as the DM, you have to understand like who your players are and what their abilities are, and like what they know how to do and what they don't know how to do, and how to make the decisions of like, when do you not fight, for instance, like because that's another part I think Dragon's Aspire Peak does well. When you run up against the what is the flying like lion creature?
Oh, the Manicore.
No, yeah,
Yep.
there's no way at that level that you're going to beat a Manicore at
Mm-hmm.
full health, right? And so as a DM, you have to like either skill it down, or like or get the players to think outside the box, like you
Right.
guys did, go hunt down a deer and feed it a deer to get it to leave, right? I mean, there's things you can do, and you can hint at it, like these are the other things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I said was like, oh, as you're doing this, you saw a bunch of deer flee.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I just kind of threw it out there, like as like an action thing that was happening in the background, to
Mm-hmm.
try to get your guys like subconscious mind to start thinking like outside the box, right? Instead of just I'm here to fight. Um, so currently, like most recently, like I'm just now going through and playing like Baldur's Gate 3, and there's a section in there where like you come up to a section where you have to make a decision on if you're gonna like fight something or if you're gonna talk to it, and like um and so I,
You're talking
I
about the ogres.
this was the mushroom people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're all kind of standing there, and you don't know, like, are they ready to fight because they look like they're ready to fight, or are they not ready because you see all these dead people laying around, and all that stuff. And so, anyways,
Right.
um, but and the ogres is another one too, though, because you end up with the horn order. Anyways, spoilers,
Yep.
right? So, but,
Yeah. I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
um, so I guess not going like way off topic here, but like yeah, player versus DM. I think the DM is there to lead and be a referee.
Mhm.
I recently have a DM that I'm kind of helping. I'm a player in his campaign, but he's a brand new DM. Like he came in ready to DM with a player's handbook, right? Like that's all he had. And so I was like, okay, there's a few other books you might want to read.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and so anyways, but he's really big on like he still wants to be a player as a DM, and there has to be a point where you're like, okay, you have to step out of that role and you have to be the referee of like this is what the monsters are doing,
Mhm.
because players tend to get off put by DMs that are like, oh, look at that crit that I just done, like all this other stuff that you would do as a player or whatever, right? Like
Right.
it's okay to celebrate some of that, but it gets old, like if everybody's having a bad rolls or whatever that night, things like that. So anyways, um, so yeah, understanding as a DM, one, who your players are, how much knowledge they have in the game, and then teaching them as they're going. Whereas a player needs to be able to absorb the world around them and listen to like the DM's guidance, and
Right.
like and really take that in to understand like, okay, if I make a decision in the future that's similar to this is probably going to be the ruling. I'll still ask it, but I'm going to know ahead of time like this is probably the direction it's going to go, right? Because it's the way the
Mhm.
world's set up. So, um, yeah, that's kind of my thought process on the difference between DM versus player. So,
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I think my biggest thing is, um, see, I'm the DM that's very much like rule of cool. If it looks good, sounds good, you can play it out in your head. If it works really well with the game, I let it happen. Like it doesn't have to be 100% follow the rules at all times. Like, and I think that's some DMs get really strict into the rules, and they're like, no, no, you cannot do that. And but why? Like, it's a fantasy game. We're playing it to enjoy it and have fun. Let it happen. Like, just let it happen. It doesn't have to be by the rules at all times. Some things, yes. Like some things, you do need to keep rules. But for the most part, like I think rule of cool is the better way to go, especially when it keeps those creative juices rolling, and allows for the players to feel more engaged. And I think that some things that like some DMs they lose that keeping the players engaged. Uh, they get caught up so much into the rules and they forget that. So that's my uh, little DM spill. As for player, um, I like the descriptiveness. Like Becca's really she's good about doing this stuff where she's descriptive about what's going on, like around you. You see these things happening around you. She just got brought into Dungeon Alchemist, by the way. So she's like, bring up the map and like the characters. So she loves that. Um, But so yeah, I mean, it helps though, like to have the visuals, but the theater of mind that she's able to like describe what's going on, and that's you need those colors, you need those extra vibrant colors going on around you so that you can put it all in your head. Like, okay, this is what my character would do. And by the way, if you build a character that doesn't fit your personality, it's going to show. It's going to show very, very vividly. Um, so when you build a character, to me, I think build a character that's part of who you are. It has to have a piece of you in it, because if it doesn't, if you just build something and you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna build a barbarian, he's mute, but you're talking all the time, that's not your character. Like that's not the character for you. Build something more to you, to who you are. And it can be like the smallest fragment of who you are. Like, it
Is
doesn't have to
is
be.
that the key to why it works so well for me? I just pick one of the voices in the head,
Oh
like,
yeah, I
and
mean
follow
the
it.
you. This is the man of 1,000 lives, people. If you don't know, he's got 1,000 individuals just locked away in the back of his head, and that's how he comes up with some of this crap. So, anyways, but yeah, like but I think that that's really a key element, and having a DM that understands the players that are playing the game with that. I mean, you made a great point about this, Psych, where you know the DM has to also understand the characters that they're playing with, um, and that's really big. So, like, I'm gonna bring this up really this little tidbit up. Yesterday, I got a call about the campaign that I have. He called me on Discord, and he wanted to talk to me about the character that he had built. Uh, and he was like, it's a really dark character. Like some of the stuff, the aspects that he was telling me, I'm like, dude, this sounds really awesome. Like, where did you get some of this? And he's like, from the Grim Hollow books. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm intrigued. Like, tell me more. And so, uh, as he's talking about it, I'm going in. I'm looking everything up I possibly can. I went to AnyFlip, which AnyFlip, I love you, by the way. If you want to sponsor this, we will be okay with that. Um, so I went to AnyFlip and just started reading through the books, and yeah, it was the stuff that was in those books was just like phenomenal, and so he's talking about bringing in like a character that's dark and demented and has a true name, a true name. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, then it's like one of those if you know you know kind of things. Uh, then you know what kind of character he's trying to bring. And I was just like, dude, this is awesome. Like, absolutely bring this character into my world. Like, this fits perfectly. So, I asked him very bluntly though, is this character allegorical? If you don't know what allegorical is, it's kind of like hidden meaning. Do they have like hidden morals, hidden meaning? Um, and so uh, he was like, I don't know what that is, and that I explained it to him, and he's like, yeah, actually, that fits pretty well. And I'm like, fantastic, bring him. So I love to talk about stuff like that because it makes people think like outside of, oh, you have these books, these are all you can do. Like, no, man, no, there's so much more out there. Like, there's so much more you can actually go. There's a couple role playing games that you can go and look at stuff and then homebrew it to fit into D&D, and it works. And I love that. I love it. So yeah, probably went way off topic, but it is what it is.
one of the points you brought up was the like the theater of the mind and being able to pull you into the scene at the time and like really explain it well. We had talked about that. One of the things too, I think that some DMs have a challenge with or don't incorporate, and I think this really pulls players into wanting to participate, is uh, having the players describe how something happens,
Right.
like as they're doing
That's
it,
what
right? Like
I'm
this
really
is what
big
the
on that,
players,
actually.
and like okay, you're picking this lock or whatever, like, and
Yep.
the lock breaks. Like, what does your character do right now?
Mhm.
Like does he freeze in the moment,
Yeah.
or is he like panicking now because it's broke, or he like tosses it over his shoulder and like is nonchalant, doesn't care? Like, what does your character do at that point? And
Yep.
that brings in that like DNA to like how
Yeah.
you're going to continue to play that character, right? Because now you've given a little bit more story to it, and the
Mhm.
more you do that, the more the other players at the table get to learn who your character is too.
Right.
So yeah, I think it really draws in people to participate, which is a huge thing in D&D. And if you've ever played at a table where like everybody else is just sitting around waiting for their turn and they're not participating at all, like
Mhm.
that is challenging to sit through.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And
yeah.
so, I mean, and you played through my couple one shots. Like, I'm really big about that. Like, okay,
Mhm.
you're about to kill a character. You roll to hit, it hits, and I'm like, explain to me how it happens. Tell me what you're visualizing. And I think that just it keeps those creative juices going, it flowing, and it really draws the character in to make them think that that is them. That's happening to them at that moment. And I think that's a key. I think that's a key that some DMs lose. So, uh, but with that being said, I know that Daddy Bro, you got another thing you got to get on.
Yep.
So I didn't want to hold you up too much longer,
All
and
good, man. I got
yeah,
nothing but time.
we kind of ran over
No
our
sleep for
time a
the
little
week.
bit.
Stupid
That's
Georgia ended up winning. I'm so pissed.
oh damn.
He came back, bastards.
Ah,
Hate
that
them.
that sucks. That sucks.
Hey, man, it's been fun. I really have enjoyed it. I hope y'all had a chance to learn something from this tonight. And remember, if you need help, get help. Please reach out.
Absolutely.
Don't hesitate. Do it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Anything from you, Psych, while we're ending this podcast?
No, 100%. And then also, like, if you guys are watching through this and want to hear more about different topics or whatever, let us know. I know that we kind of laid out an idea of talking about world building, character creation, and then also like supplemental materials, which I think supplemental materials don't tend to get touched on very often. So
Yeah,
in
we'll talk about
discussion
that next
points.
time. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that some of those areas for next discussion, if people are
Yeah.
good with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, definitely leave them in the comment section. And hey, we'll see you next week, right? Next week we'll try to get this done
Sure.
again, but we'll try to do it on time next time. So just
Famous last words.
yeah, right, exactly. But anyways, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you. Um, like I said, my name's Knight. This Psych Ward here in the middle, and Daddy Bro 72 on the end.
Hi.
And with that, you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening.
Later,
Uh,
all.
Thanks
yep,
all.
yep. Have a good one. And if I can end this thing at right here.